Ever since the birth of the industry, the gaming landscape has been no stranger to debates. Console wars, the morality of emulation, Sonic vs. Mario, whether or not Last of Us 2 is a good game or screaming racial slurs in Call of Duty lobbies is justified. But one of the most prominent debates among gamers is physical versus digital games. Since everyone has their own opinions, I thought it would be fun to make a video comparing and contrasting the two, taking into consideration the pros and cons of both sides and explaining which one I prefer and why. Also, I thought a video discussing a general gaming topic would be a nice change of pace from my usual videos, which are reviews of one single game. Some of you guys may already know my general opinion because of my Sonic Central video a few months ago, but I kept it really brief in that video so I could make a full video on it in the future. Also, I just want to say that preferring one over the other is perfectly fine. This video is not meant to be an attack on people who disagree with me. I just wanted to make this video because I find talking about games can be fun as long as people are willing to be respectful. Firstly, let me introduce the two types of games. Physical games are games that are stored on a cartridge or disc and are something you can physically hold. For a long time, buying games physically was the only way to buy games, so some people still continue to do it because of tradition. Digital games are different because rather than data stored on a physical piece of media, instead they're digitally downloaded to your console. They became popular in the mid-2000s. Since around that time, more people started getting the internet, and with the 6th generation of gaming, they started to offer digital stores where you can pay and download games directly to your console all the way from your house. So the main difference between the two are how they are stored. The games themselves are the exact same regardless if it's on a disc or digitally downloaded. Firstly, and this one is definitely going to be very subjective, I don't know, I just don't like owning a game digitally. Something about being able to physically hold a game is something I've always just really liked. I think it's very satisfying to buy a game physically, which is something I don't really feel when buying digital games. With the physical disc or cartridge, you own it, it can do anything you want with it. Play it, destroy it, or even sell it to buy more games. With a digital game, you mostly just have the license to play the game, or at least that's how it feels. This is kind of bad for preservation, since if you lose your account, all of your games are gone. You can try and go through the trouble of restoring it, but that usually takes a while, and just owning games physically can prevent any problem like that in the first place. Also, another issue that digital-only games present is that if a game was exclusive to digital stores and is delisted for whatever reason, that game is gone. Unless you already bought it, you have no way of playing it, which really sucks. Not all digital stores will last forever. In early 2019, the Wii Shop channel shut down, meaning tons of great games that were exclusive to that digital store cannot be downloaded anymore. The PS3 and PS Vita stores are on their deathbed now. Since after October 27th, you won't be able to purchase games from those platforms with a credit card, debit card, or PayPal. You'll be forced to use a PSN gift card. This really isn't a good sign, especially since earlier this year they planned on closing the stores entirely but changed their mind after the massive negative feedback they received. Digital refund policies are very strict with what you can and can't refund. The PlayStation Store, which is a digital store I use the most, only allows you to refund a game for the first 2 weeks you own it. And if you've even started to play the game, you can't refund it unless it's faulty, meaning it was something you didn't purchase. Sure, you can't just lie and say it was bought without your permission, but this rule in general is something I find very stupid. Why can I not refund a game after playing it? I know most companies don't do this because they have to have money to stay alive, but physical games don't have this issue. If I buy a game physically, I can finish the game, then sell it to buy even more games. This is a very good reason for the argument favoring physical, since it can save you a lot of money. Lastly, and this one is definitely subjective, but something I love about buying physical games is building a collection. Some people may see it as just things on a shelf that'll collect dust, but to me, it's something to be proud of. This one kind of does go against the concept of selling games, since obviously if you want a large collection, selling games is kind of a big no-no, but not everyone has the same opinions. I just think that building a large library of games that you can store on a shelf is a really cool display. I've heard some people think that just the idea of it being a physical item is a negative since they simply don't have the space in their house or wherever they live. If I'm gonna be honest, they really don't take up a lot of space, so I don't really think this is an issue. Also, accidentally losing games is actually very uncommon. It's not that hard to just keep track of where you keep your games, dude. Now that I've discussed most of what I want to about physical games, let's take a look at the other side of the coin. By far the most frequent point I see mentioned in favor of digital gaming is convenience. When buying a digital game, you don't have to leave your house and go to a store. You can sit down on your couch and browse the available games and even purchase them. I'm not going to deny that being able to shop for games from the comfort of your house is seriously convenient and can save time. And this is definitely a big positive for digital games, but in my opinion, I don't have any issues with going to the store and buying a game. In fact, I like going to game stores and seeing all the games they have. Also, it can be nice to leave your house every now and then. Another point contributing to the convenience of digital gaming is how the games are all stored on the console, which prevents the need of having to get up and grab the game from your shelf. And I mean, I guess this is a positive? Like, it really makes a difference because my shelf is right next to where I keep all my consoles. Okay, there is an actual good side to this. If you have to travel often, having just one console to store all your games is a lot more convenient than bringing all of your games or the games you want to play with you. This is one of those things that being positive depends on you as an individual. If you're someone who doesn't travel very often, then you won't have to suffer from trying to bring a huge collection of games with you to places. Another contributing factor to the argument favoring digital games is the whole fiasco with retro game prices. A lot of retro games can be very expensive because they aren't being sold by the the official game company and it's just some dude on eBay, meaning they'll have no shame selling Mario Kart Double Dash for over $70 for a copy that doesn't even have the bonus disc or manual. The reason why retro games can become so expensive in value is all because of supply and demand and the rarity of said game. Games that are mass-produced will naturally cost less than a game that didn't have nearly as many physical copies produced. People just find more value in selling that as rare simply because it's rare. So as a result, a rare game that had a limited run will rise in value. Meanwhile, a game on a console that sold more than 155 million units won't cost as much money, since they had to make a lot of copies due to its large number of users. Once a game stops being produced, that means there's only a limited amount of said game out there in the world. These issues can be solved by purchasing retro games from digital stores, since most of the time it is a lot cheaper. A lot of companies like to re-release old classics not only to give people a new and more convenient way to play their beloved old game, but to introduce their game to new people who previously couldn't. Now you're probably wondering, wait, didn't you say physical games are usually cheaper? Yes, I did. But that's mostly for games on modern consoles. Like I said, when a game stops being produced, it will rise in value a lot. This makes buying an old game digitally cheaper, and honestly, I can't really argue against that. If I can buy an old game for $10 on a digital store or $85 for a physical copy, I'll likely just buy it digitally. Or maybe I'll just do both, because when it comes to games that I really like, I also like owning physical copies. Digital stores usually have sales very often and include a lot of games, but it isn't that impressive since, well, retail stores have sales too. In fact, there are actually a lot more retail stores that can have sales, therefore finding a specific game at a discounted price is easier. Digital stores can also have subscription services like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Now that'll offer you hundreds of games for a monthly or annual fee. This is definitely a huge plus for digital games. There's also emulation, which is technically digital. For those who are unaware, emulators allow you to emulate old games from consoles via ROM files, giving you easy access to a huge library of old games at most of the time a free price. The morality of emulated games has been a hot topic for a long time now, because how you can emulate games for free, a lot of people think it's piracy, which is illegal, but in my opinion, if a game is not officially being sold in retail stores anymore, emulating games is fine since it isn't really piracy. If I went onto eBay and bought a GameCube which isn't being sold officially anymore, Nintendo doesn't make any profit from it, so it really doesn't matter. To combat this, many companies will release their older games officially, which is why more people are starting to question the morality. Personally, I don't really use emulators often because sometimes it just feels wrong playing on an emulator. Not because I think it's like illegal or anything, I just like playing on original hardware. That may sound weird to some people, but it's just how I feel. Another part of digital games is game sharing. Just as the name implies, it allows you to share games with your friends. Some of you guys may be scratching your heads at me saying this since you can obviously share physical games since they're physical items, but it works a lot more differently. To share a physical game, you'll obviously have to meet them in person to give them the game, but with digital game sharing, your friend, whether it be someone you live with or someone in a different country, can add your account to their console and access your library of digital games. When it comes to online games, this can be great since with one purchase, you and your friend can get the game. And when it comes to games specifically designed around multiplayer, you already have a friend to play with. There is one downside to this, and that's the fact that, well, you're giving them your entire account that'll probably contain all your personal information. Not everyone is gonna hack you or anything, but doing this takes a lot of trust in someone. Also, game sharing isn't as simple as it sounds because you'll have to have one primary console activated. For example, if my console is a primary one, any other people who have my account on their system cannot access games from my digital library because the license containing the right to play the game is on my console. There is a way to kind of fix this. If your friend or the person who didn't originally buy the games on their console has their system activated as a primary one, you can usually restore the license at your console. But if you aren't connected to the internet, meaning you can't sign in to verify your account, then you can't play your digital games because the console can't verify whether or not you have the right to play them. If you have generally poor internet and don't have access to the internet very often, game sharing can be very inconvenient. Obviously, if your system is the primary one, you can play games offline. The release of the 9th console generation also gave birth to something that scares me: digital-only consoles. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X have cheaper variants that'll only play digital games. The reason this scares me is because of the fact selling games digitally is cheaper and the money goes directly to the developers. It's possible digital games will become the future, which is something I really hope doesn't happen since not only do I just prefer physical games, but it's bad for those like myself who want to preserve games that could possibly go away in the future. Now that I've discussed the difference between the two mediums and the pros and cons that they bring, it's finally time to declare a verdict. Some of you guys may have expected a final answer declaring that one is objectively better than the other, but really there is no right answer. In my personal opinion, I prefer physical games because I love building a collection, it preserves games, and you can sell your games. But maybe you or someone else enjoys digital games because it's convenient to have all your games stored on one console. Or perhaps you really enjoy playing games with your friends, then you can game share your digital games. And you can also emulate old games, which prevents you from having to spend up to hundreds of dollars to play a game on the original hardware. Both sides have pros and cons, but how bad the cons are and how good the pros are is all subjective. Maybe there are some benefits or negative aspects for one side I simply forgot to mention. If so, you can feel free to let me know in the comments or even explain which side you prefer. Like I said, I'm fine with discussion as long as everyone can stay civil. I also decided to make a poll to see what you guys thought, and physical games ended up winning, which kind of surprised me to be honest. Thank you to everyone who voted, and I'm looking forward to having more viewer interactivity for future projects. Anyways, that's all. See ya.